In this video, we are going to create a Tik Tak Toe game otherwise known as Naughts and Crosses in Python using Tkinter. First, open idle and create a new script named Tik Tak Toe. Save the file. Now let's begin with our Tkinter window setup. At the top of the script, type import Tkinter as tk. We will also be using the random library in this project, so on the next line down, type import random. Enter a few lines down and type window equals tk dot tk open bracket close bracket. On the next line down, type window dot title open bracket apostrophe Tik Tak Toe apostrophe close bracket. On the next line down, type window dot config open bracket background equals apostrophe black apostrophe close bracket. Then on the next line down, type window dot state open bracket apostrophe zoomed apostrophe close bracket. This creates a window with a black background that opens in full screen. Now enter a few lines down and type window dot main loop open bracket close bracket. This ends the main loop of the Tkinter program, so all our code will be contained between the window statements and the main loop. Let's create a few variables that get the width and height of our current monitor screen, which we can use to place things later in the script. Under the window statements, type window underscore width equals window dot w info underscore screen width open bracket close bracket backslash 100. This takes the current screen width and divides by 100. Copy this line of code and paste on the line below. Then change the pasted variable name to window underscore height. And in the W info section, change it to screen height. Next, let's create a grid of buttons for our X and O's to go into. We can dynamically create these buttons by using a 2D array. To set this up, enter a few lines down and type buttons equals open square bracket apostrophe apostrophe comma apostrophe apostrophe comma apostrophe apostrophe end square bracket comma. Then enter down a new line and type open square bracket apostrophe apostrophe comma apostrophe apostrophe comma apostrophe apostrophe close square bracket comma. Then finally, enter down a line and type open square bracket apostrophe apostrophe comma apostrophe apostrophe comma apostrophe apostrophe close square bracket close square bracket. Here we can see a 2D array that has been created to create a grid with 3 rows and 3 columns. We can use this to create our 9 buttons. On the next line down, let's create a nested for loop. Type for x in range open bracket 3 close bracket colon. Then enter a line down. Then type for y in range open bracket 3 close bracket colon. Then enter down another line. Here we have a for loop inside a for loop, so for each iteration of the x loop, the y loop will run 3 times, meaning that the y loop runs 9 times in total. Now type buttons open square bracket x close square bracket open square bracket y close square bracket. This refers to the 2D array that we created and refers to the position 0, 0 in the array when the loop first runs. For each subsequent loop, the value of x and y changes, so effectively for the 9 total loops, we will refer to all 9 values within our 2D array. Now type equals tk dot button open bracket window comma text equals apostrophe space apostrophe comma. So far, we are creating a button with the text value of an empty space, as our button won't have any excess or O's in it yet. Now type font equals open bracket apostrophe Arial apostrophe comma 50 close bracket comma. Then type width equals 4 comma bg equals apostrophe light gray apostrophe comma. Then add a forward slash in to split the line, as the line is getting quite lengthy, then enter down to the next line. Now type command equals lambda row equals x, comma, column equals y. This creates a lambda function and creates the variables row and column within it. The variables are then assigned to the x and y of our current loops. Then type button underscore press, open bracket, row, comma, column, close bracket, close bracket. This calls a function named button press. We haven't created this function yet, but it will be the main function that we use to handle what happens when a button is pressed. We then pass through the values of row and column to the function whenever it is called through the button press, which are defined earlier in the lambda statement. Above the buttons array that we created earlier, type def button underscore press, open bracket, row, comma, column, close bracket, colon. Then enter down a line and type pass. This is just a placeholder for our main code, which we will write later. In our nested for loops, where we created the buttons, we also need to place them on the screen. As the width and height need to be changed each time a button is placed, let's create a few new variables to store the width and height values in. Above the for loops, type place underscore x equals window underscore width asterisk 35. This creates a variable named place x and assigns it a value of 35% of the current window width. On the next line down, let's do the same for the height, by typing place underscore y equals window underscore height asterisk 25. Now that we have a width and height placement variable created, we can use it in our for loop to place the buttons. On the next line down in the for loop, type buttons open square bracket x close square bracket, open square bracket y close square bracket, dot place open bracket x equals place underscore x comma y equals place underscore y close bracket. Now, each time the loop runs, we need to increase the width that the button gets placed at, so that the buttons aren't placed on top of each other. To do this, on the next line down, type place underscore x equals place underscore x plus open bracket window underscore width asterisk 10 close bracket. This adds 10% of the current screen size onto the window width each time the loop runs. As we don't want all the buttons placed in a line, we need to revert the window width back to its original value every time the loop runs 3 times. So, enter a line down, then backspace to exit out of the while loop, and enter the X loop. Now type place underscore X equals window underscore width asterisk 35. This will reset the value of place X every time 3 buttons are placed. We will also need to change the height of the button placement for every 3 buttons placed. So, on the next line down, type place underscore Y equals place underscore Y plus open bracket, window underscore height asterisk 15 close bracket. Now, if we run the code, we can see that we have a grid of 9 buttons created, with equal spaces between them. If we click the buttons at the moment, nothing happens. We need to store the values of our grid, whether X or O is pressed, somewhere. Let's create another 2D array to store these values in. Copy the buttons 2D array, and paste it underneath the window width and height settings towards the top of the script. Change the variable name to grid underscore values. We can now use this new array to store our X and O values later on in the script. When the game launches, we want the first player to be either X or O, but we want this to be chosen at random each time the game starts. To do this, let's create a new variable underneath the grid values array, enter a new line and type player equals random dot choice open bracket apostrophe player 1 apostrophe comma apostrophe, player, 2, apostrophe, close bracket, close bracket. Now whenever the script launches, we will have a random selection of either player 1 or player 2 assigned to the variable of player. Let's say that player 1 is an X and player 2 is an O. We also want to display to the screen whose turn it is, based on which player gets chosen. First, let's create a label to contain the string to say whose turn it is. On the next line down, type label 1 equals tk dot label open bracket window comma text equals apostrophe apostrophe comma font equals open bracket apostrophe Arial apostrophe comma 40 close bracket comma FG equals apostrophe yellow apostrophe comma BG equals apostrophe black apostrophe close bracket. This defines the label which we will pass text to, depending on whose turn it is. Let's configure the text of this label based on an if statement. On the next line down, type if player double equals apostrophe player 1 apostrophe colon. Then press enter to go to the next line. Then type label 1 dot config open bracket text equals apostrophe. It's the turn of X apostrophe close bracket. Now enter down to the next line and type else colon. Then enter down a line. You can copy the first label 1 config statement and paste it in the else condition. Change the text to say it's the turn of O. Now that we've configured our text based on which player goes first, let's place it on the screen. On the next line down, type label 1 dot place open bracket X equals open bracket window underscore width asterisk 40 close bracket comma Y equals open bracket window underscore height asterisk 10 close bracket close bracket. Now if we run the code, here I typed label with a capital L rather than the correct variable name with a lowercase. Let's amend that and run the code again. We can see a yellow statement that lets you know whose turn it is. Each time we run this, it has the random chance of being either X's turn or O's turn. If you run the code a few times, you should see that the text value changes. Now that we've done that, let's write out the code for our button press function. In the button press function, remove the pass statement. We will need to change the value of a few global variables, so let's declare them first. Type global player. Then on the next line down, type global label 1. Now, when a button is pressed, we need to check whether it already has a value of X or O in it. If it does, then we don't want to do anything when the button is pressed again. To do this, we can create an if statement that checks the grid values variable which we created earlier. On the next line down in the function, type if grid underscore values open square bracket row close square bracket open square bracket column close square bracket double equals apostrophe X apostrophe or. Then copy the grid underscore values row column equals X statement and paste it again, but this time change the X to an O, then finish the if statement by typing a colon. Then enter down a line and type pass. So here, we are saying, if the current button has a corresponding X or O in the grid values array we set up earlier, then don't do anything, as the button and the grid value already has a value assigned to it. Now enter a line down and type else colon. Then enter down. Now, we need to check which player's turn it is, so that we can place either the X or the O in the value of the button. We can use another if statement for this. Type if player double equals apostrophe player 1 apostrophe colon. Then enter down to the next line. If the player is player 1, then we want to enter a value of X in the grid values, based on the current button position. So, let's type grid underscore values, open square bracket, row, close square bracket. Open square bracket, column, close square bracket. Equals apostrophe x apostrophe. We also need to update the text of the button pressed. So, enter down to the next line and type buttons, open square bracket, row, close square bracket. Open square bracket, column, close square bracket. Dot, config, open bracket. Text equals apostrophe x apostrophe, close bracket. This sets the current button's text to X. Once player 1 has had a turn, we want to switch to player's 2 turn. So, on the next line down, type player equals apostrophe player 2 apostrophe. So far, if it's player 1's turn, we have set the grid values and the button text to X, and assigned the next player as player 2. We now need to do the same for if it's player 2's turn. Enter down a new line and backspace, then type else colon. Now, we can copy all the code from grid values to the player variable and paste it in the else statement. For the grid values, change the variable setting from an X to an O. Do the same for the button's text. For the player variable, change the value from player 2 to player 1. Here I typed grind instead of grid, let's quickly change that. Now, if we run the code and press a few of the buttons, we can see that an X or an O is placed in each of the buttons. Notice how the player's turn info doesn't update yet. We can script this out next. On the next line down, in our function. Backspace to break out of the current else statement. Then, if you scroll up to where we wrote the initial label 1 creation statement, copy the if statement all the way to the else statement. We only need to copy the if-else sections, not the initial label declaration, or the place statement. Now, go back down to the function, and paste the if-else statement at the bottom of it. It should be in line with the if-else statement above it. Now, if we run the code again. When we press the buttons, we can see that the turn statement is updated. Now that we've got our buttons text working and our turn statement working, let's write the code to work out if there is a winner or not. Above the button press function, let's create a new function. Enter a few lines and type def check underscore score, open bracket, close bracket, colon. Then enter down and type pass. We need to call this function every time a button is pressed, so back in our button press function. At the bottom, enter a new line and backspace once to break out of the else statement. Then type check underscore score, open bracket, close bracket. Now whenever we press a button, it will activate the check score function as well. Here I have an extra copied place statement, which we don't need, so I'll remove that. We also need a way to determine a winner. Let's first create a winner variable that we can use later on in the script. Above the check score function, type winner equals apostrophe apostrophe. This is a placeholder for our winner variable. Whenever there is a winner, we can set the value in this variable to something else. So, in its current state it means that there is no winner at the moment. When the game is won, we don't want the user to be able to press any of the buttons. So, if we go back down to our button press function, underneath where we first declared the global variables, type if winner exclamation mark equals apostrophe apostrophe colon. This means if the winner is not empty. Then enter a line down. Then type return. So, we are checking if there is a winner. If there is a winner, the script carries on through the button press function. If there isn't a winner, then we use the return statement to break out of the button press function, which in turn stops you continuing to play when the game is already won. Now that we've got the winner variable set up, Go back to the check score function, remove the pass statement and type global winner to initialize the global variable within the function, as we will be needing to write to this variable later in the code. There are a couple of other variables that we need to create. We need a variable that checks whether there is a draw. On the next line down, type draw equals 0. Next, we want to be able to check all the conditions that are a winning condition for XS and for Os. So that we don't have to duplicate code for both, let's create a variable, which we can use in a loop, to run the same if statements for X and O. First enter a line down and type check underscore against equals apostrophe X apostrophe. Now enter down another line and type for I in range, open bracket, 2, close bracket, colon. Within this for statement is where we will type our main winning condition statements. We know that a player wins if they get a row or a column in the grid values. For the column, this would be if they have a position of 0, 0, a position of 1, 0, and a position of 2, 0. There are also multiple conditions that equal a win, but let's write the first statement so that we can test it. On the next line, type if grid underscore values open square bracket 0 close square bracket, open square bracket 0 close square bracket double equals check underscore against and then copy the grid values all the way to the end statement and paste at the end of the line twice. Then remove the end and statement and replace with a colon. Then in the middle if statement, change the grid values to 1, 0. In the end grid values, change the values to 2, 0. This is the condition for the first column. Now, enter down a new line. Here, we want to turn all the buttons green if they match the current condition. So type buttons open square bracket 0 close square bracket, open square bracket 0 close square bracket, dot config open bracket bg equals apostrophe green apostrophe close bracket. Then copy this line of code and paste it twice below. Then change the button's values, for the second statement, to 1, 0. Then for the third, change it to 2, 0. This should match our grid values references above. We also need to set the winner to the value of X, or O depending on who the winner is. At the moment let's refer to our check against condition. On the next line down, type winner equals check underscore against. Now let's test this code. Run the code, and get an X value on all the squares on the first column. When we do this, the buttons should all turn green. This won't work for the O's yet, so make sure to test for the XS. Here we can see that the column correctly turns green if it matches the criteria. We now need to do similar for all our other conditions. Back in the script, copy the if statement along with the button and winner variable conditions and paste it below 7 times. As there are 7 ways to win the game. Instead of an if statement, for the pasted code, change the statement to an if statement. Do this for all of the pasted if statements, as we want to run through each statement one at a time. You should now have an if statement at the top and multiple else if statements below. Now we need to update the value for all our additional conditions. In the second condition down, change the grid values as follows. 0, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1. Also change the button's values to the same. 0, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1. For the next set of values, change the grid values to 0, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, and their corresponding button values to 0, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2. For the next set of values, change the grid values to 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 2, and their corresponding button values to 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 2. For the next set of values, change the grid values to 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 2. And their corresponding button values to 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 2. For the next set of values, change the grid values to 2, 0, 2, 1, 2, 2, and their corresponding button values to 2, 0, 2, 1, 2, 2. For the next set of values, change the grid values to 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2, and their corresponding button values to 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2. And finally, for the last set of values, change the grid values to 2, 0, 1, 1, 0, 2, and their corresponding button values to 2, 0, 1, 1, 0, 2. This covers all the winning conditions for X. So that we don't have to type this all again for O, as the code loops twice, let's change the value of check against to O. Enter a line down, backspace and type check, underscore, against, equals, apostrophe, O, apostrophe. Now the first time the code runs, the condition will be checked to see if X wins, and the second time it runs, the condition will check to see if O has won. Now we just need to define what happens depending on who has won. We want to display the message either X wins or O wins. Enter a line down and backspace to exit the current else if statements. Now type if winner double equals apostrophe X apostrophe colon. Then enter a line down. Then type label 1 dot config open bracket text equals open bracket apostrophe. Then type 5 spaces. Then type X wins exclamation mark apostrophe close bracket close bracket. Here we're changing the value of label 1 to display that X wins. We enter 5 spaces, as the current text is smaller than the turn statement text. So if we didn't enter spaces it would be aligned too far to the left. Let's copy this if statement and label config assignment, and paste it underneath. We now need to adjust the values for O. First change the statement type to an L, if, statement, then change the value of X in the winner variable to an O. And the values of X in the label text statement to O. That's our win condition sorted. The only other variable needed is the draw variable. So, enter a line down and backspace, then type, else, colon. Then enter down to the next line. We now need to check if all values in our grid values array have a value of X or O in them. If they all have a value in them, and because it's an else statement, it means that there currently isn't a winner, then the only remaining option is for it to be a draw. So, let's write a nested for loop, to loop through our grid values array, and tally up how many values currently have an X or O in them. Type 4x in, range, open bracket, 3, close bracket, colon. Then enter down to the next line. Then type 4y in, range, open bracket, 3, close bracket, colon. Then enter down to the next line and type if grid underscore values open square bracket x close square bracket open square bracket y close square bracket double equals apostrophe x apostrophe or grid underscore values open square bracket x close square bracket open square bracket y close square bracket double equals apostrophe o apostrophe colon. Then enter down to the next line and type draw equals draw plus 1. This adds 1 to the value of draw, which we created earlier on in the script, if there is a value of x or o in the grid values 2D array. We now need to run a check to see if the draw variable equals 9, in which case it will be a draw. Enter down to the next line, and backspace to exit all of the if statements, leaving only one indent. Now type if draw double equals 9, colon. Then enter down a line and type label 1 dot config open bracket text equals open bracket apostrophe. Then type 7 spaces. Then type draw exclamation mark apostrophe close bracket close bracket. You can now run the code, which will give you a fully functional game of Tic Tac Toe. The only other thing we now need to add is a reset function. At the very bottom of the code, above the main loop, enter a few lines. Here we can create a reset button. Type the following: reset equals tk dot button open bracket window comma text equals apostrophe reset apostrophe comma font equals open bracket apostrophe Arial apostrophe comma 50 close bracket comma command equals lambda colon reset underscore func open bracket close bracket close bracket. This creates a new button with the variable name reset that runs the function named resetFunc. We haven't created the resetFunc function yet. On the next line down, let's place the button on the screen. Type reset dot place open bracket x equals open bracket window underscore width asterisk 43 close bracket comma y equals open bracket window underscore height asterisk 70 close bracket close bracket. Now, above the button declaration and place statements, enter a few lines and let's create our resetFunc function. Type def reset underscore func open bracket close bracket colon. Then enter down a line and type pass. If we now run the code, we should see a newly created button with the text reset. Currently it won't do anything when pressed. Now let's write the code for our reset button. Back in the script, remove the pass statement. We need to reset a few values whenever the button is pressed. Let's start by resetting the winner value. To do this, we need to declare the global variable winner, so type global winner. Then enter down to the next line and type winner equals apostrophe apostrophe. This resets any winner information that's currently stored in the winner variable to its default value. Next, we need to reset the status of the buttons, so that if there are any XS or Os in them, or any win statuses with a green button background, that they are reset to be empty. To do this, let's create a nested for loop, to loop through all the buttons. On the next line down, type 4x in, range, open bracket, 3, close bracket, colon. Then enter down to the next line. Then type 4y in, range, open bracket, 3, close bracket, colon. Then enter down to the next line. Then, let's reset the status of our grid values first by typing grid underscore values open square brackets x close square brackets open square brackets y close square brackets equals apostrophe apostrophe. Let's now reset our button's text and color. On the next line down, type buttons open square bracket x close square bracket open square bracket y close square bracket dot config open bracket text equals apostrophe apostrophe comma bg equals apostrophe light gray apostrophe close bracket. So far, we have reset the variable grid variables to its default value and the button's text and color. Now, we also need to reset the label that displays whose turn it is. If we scroll up to where we originally wrote the if statement for label 1, we can copy the portion of code from if all the way to the else statement. We can now go back to our reset function and paste it underneath. We want these values outside of the nested for loop, so make sure that the if and else have only one indent, and the config statements have 2 indents. The last thing we need to do in our script is, on the next line down, call the check score function again, type check underscore score open bracket close bracket. Now we can run the code. If we now play the game until there is a winner, and then press the reset button, we should now have a new game. If we get a draw, we should also see the word draw displayed. The game is now fully functional. This concludes the video on Tik Tak Toe. Like all our projects, we could make improvements to this game. We could add a score counter that counts how many games have been won by each player. We could create a rudimental AI to play against that selects a random blank button on their turn. And we could import images for each button and improve the user interface to make it look more professional. See if you can make improvements or change the code to suit your style. In this video, we have worked with nested for loops, 2-dimensional arrays, multiple functions, and the Tkinter library. Stay tuned for more videos and don't forget to like and subscribe if you found this video useful.